Imagine you are laying in a hospital bed in agonizing pain that will only proceed to get worse. Monitor leads running from head down to your feet, IV tubing with medications to attempt to make you comfortable, and only getting to see your family and friends for a limited amount of time each day, which is set in place by hospital policies and procedures. Being unable to sleep, barely able to eat, and wishing every day that you could end this pain and loneliness. Your doctor has come in and given you the worst news that you could ever receive. You have no chance of survival. You go home to receive palliative care, in their terms, to be comfortable until your death. Your parents, children, or siblings are giving you baths, changing your diapers, and you have no personal space. You have been able to get your affairs in order and been able to say goodbye, so why should you have to suffer? Physician-assisted suicide should be a legal option for patients with a terminally ill diagnosis in the United States. How can a physician take another person's life, you may ask? Pteria defines physician-assisted suicide as an individual self-administering a lethal dose that is prescribed by a physician, whereas euthanasia would be administering of the medication by the physician. According to recent articles in physician studies by UpToDate, in physician-assisted suicides, the physician would prescribe the patient a medication to assist with sedation, which, in the lethal dose, would help the patient to take their last breath. The administration of this medication would be left into the hands of the patient when they are ready to leave this earth. If you choose to participate and self-administer the medication, your death certificate will list your cause of death as the disease that the doctor predicts will ultimately be your cause of death. It is up to you to make the decision. If you decide to go through with the process and be eligible to hold the prescription, you can give it to the pharmacy to hold it until you are ready, or fill the prescription and decide to never take it at all. 1/3 of patients, once approved for the procedure, decide to not follow through. They feel that having the prescription gives them the peace of mind that if their symptoms become worse or unbearable, they have the option to proceed. Within the United States, there are 8 states that have laws in place regarding physician-assisted suicide. According to Pro-Con's legal proceedings, Oregon was the first in 1997 with the Death and Dignity Act. Washington was the second state to follow in 2008 with Initiative Measure Number 1000, also known as the Washington Death with Dignity Act. These acts both require that the patient be an adult that is mentally competent, has a terminal illness, has requested assisted suicide on their own free will, submitted the request in writing, and must meet the requirements of being a citizen to that state. Once these requirements have been met, the patient must go to counseling, notify a family member of their decision to end their life, and they must be informed of the risk and as well as other alternatives to the decision that they have made. Montana is the 3rd state to adopt a physician-assisted suicide law. Robert Baxter, who is a Marine veteran diagnosed with leukemia, he, with the assistance of his 4 physicians and the Compassion and Choice organization, brought a lawsuit against the state of Montana to be granted permission to participate in a physician-assisted suicide under the United States Constitution for his right to die. Unfortunately, Mr. Baxter died before the final decision was made. On December 31st in 2009, the Montana Supreme Court ruled that the terminally ill residents have the right to die. The courts did not set any requirements for specific qualifications as to who has the right to choose this procedure, other than it must be decided through a court ruling. So there aren't any restrictions in place like the ones that Oregon and Washington have. Vermont was next in 2013 with End of Life and Choices Act. California in 2015 by the End of Life Options Act. Colorado in 2016 by the End of Life Options Act. Washington, D.C. in 2016 by the Death with Dignity Act, and Hawaii, which goes into effect in 2019 by the Hawaii Our Care, Our Choice Act. Oregon, Vermont, and Washington State have a secondary waiting period. Death with Dignity stated that once a physician receives the written request, they must wait 48 hours before they can prescribe the medication to end one's life. If a patient has met the requirements and has received the appropriate education to make an informed decision on ending their life, shouldn't they have the opportunity to act upon the rights that are granted to us through the U.S. Constitution? The physician is not ending the patient's life. They are only prescribing the medication and leaving the decision up to the patient so that they can end their life with dignity instead of in agonizing pain. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.